welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing a list of 10 things that I wish I knew when I was first getting started with my drawing journey. Now, if you've seen any of my past videos on drawing or even read past blog posts that I have written, you probably already know that I give a lot of importance to drawing and sketching. And even though I primarily consider myself to be a painter and I sell my paintings, for me, it's very important to keep a sketchbook habit, and I want to keep progressing my drawing and observational skills through sketching throughout my entire artistic journey. This video is full of useful tips for beginners out there. Whether you're looking to create more of a stylized, illustrative type of look to your work, or you're trying to progress more towards realism, these tips will help you. Now, personally, I don't consider any kind of artwork to be better than the other, and I absolutely love that there are so many different styles out there and so many different degrees of realism out there, and that everyone is able to express themselves in their own way. Something I always love encouraging beginners to do is to, yes, continue developing that confidence in your line work and drawing in general terms, but at the same time start reading about art fundamentals and absorbing all you can about proportion, composition, value, etc. If this is your first time here at my channel, welcome. I am super happy you're here. Consider subscribing because every single Friday I share a new video with art tips, drawing and painting tutorials, and encouragement for aspiring artists. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to click on that little bell so that YouTube can let you know whenever I publish a new video. Alright guys, let's get into it. Okay everyone, let's begin with the first thing that I wish I knew about drawing when I was first starting out. And this one is that it is very, very important to start from more general and work your way towards specifics as you move on throughout the drawing process. When we're about to start a drawing, it's very important to be able to visualize whatever it is we're drawing as a combination of simple shapes. Doing this is going to enable us to more easily achieve effective proportion and location of different elements in regards to each other, as well as within our drawing space. By laying down these simple shapes, we're going to be able to then compare them in terms of width, length, the angles created, as well as their location within the space, so that we're able to tell if everything has correct proportion. Remember that proportion is all about relationships and not about one element in and of itself. And it's very, very important to achieve a preliminary sketch that demonstrates effective proportion before moving on to any details like shading or texture. I cannot tell you how many drawings I worked on when I was first starting out that I worked on for hours on end just to find out that something looked off when I finished. And it was mostly due to the fact that I didn't spend enough time on that preliminary sketch to make sure that everything was in correct proportion and the locations of the individual elements were effective. And there are certain artists out there that are able to work from one element outwards, or even from one side of the picture to the other. But for the most part, those people already have amazing observational skills and or have been studying that specific subject on hand for a while. For me, it really helps to remember that creating a visual composition isn't only about one part of the drawing or painting, it's about the sum of everything in it. The second thing I wish I knew about drawing when I was first getting started is the importance of knowing your drawing tools, especially when it comes to pencil grades. Knowing about different pencil grades as well as when each of them could come in handy during the drawing process is very important. I'll make sure to create a separate video in the future explaining different pencil grades, but it's important for you to understand right now that there are pencils that contain softer leads and there are pencils that contain harder leads. H-grade pencils are harder lead pencils, and the harder lead pencils create softer, cleaner looking lines. You can find these pencils in 2H, 4H, 6H, 8H, etc. The higher the number is, the harder the lead is. B pencils are softer lead pencils, and softer lead leads to darker lines that are able to smudge more easily. You can find B pencils in 2B, 4B, 6B, 8B, etc. And the higher the number, the softer the lead will be. Right in between the two, you have the HB pencil, which is a sort of mid-range pencil. Now, I personally have discovered for myself, I love using the HB to create my preliminary sketch. Personally, I don't like harder lead pencils very much. However, I do enjoy the sketchier, a bit of a messier look myself. So it's going to be up to you and practicing and discovering which specific pencil grades you want and need. All this said, I do recommend you get at least a few different pencil grades so that you can use the harder lead pencil for the preliminary sketch, which should be lighter and easier to erase, and then move on to darker, softer pencil grades as you move on in your process so that you're able to develop a full range of values all the way from lightest lights to mid-tones to darkest darks. Even if you're not intending to draw something very realistic, it really helps to have different pencil grades available because this enables you to very easily create variation in your line work, which makes your drawing a lot more visually striking. In terms of erasers, you have a variety available. I really love using a very basic soft rubber graphite eraser for larger spaces, and I really love combining this with my Mono Zero eraser, which I buy through Amazon. Link will be left down below in the description box. I love using the Mono Zero eraser to pull out highlights and go into smaller spaces. There is also the kneaded eraser, which a lot of artists love using, that you can manipulate into different shapes so that you can go into smaller areas and also pull out highlights. I personally don't like it as much, but it's worth exploring for yourself to see if you like it. And there's also this electric eraser. If you're really into drawing, then maybe at some point it would be worth exploring. Since I paint as well, I'm very basic when it comes to my drawing tools. And I honestly don't feel that you need anything special to create an amazing looking drawing. And finally, when it comes to paper, it's really going to be up to you to discover if you like drawing on a slightly texturized paper or a smoother paper. Personally, I enjoy the smoother variety because it enables me to blend out a lot easier. And I also find that it allows me to create those darker values a lot easier. So I usually just go for any kind of sketchbook or paper that says it's intended for sketching or drawing. I also enjoy a bit of a thicker paper because it allows for more erasing and doesn't get damaged as easily as thinner paper, which can be very frustrating. Alright, moving on to the third thing that I wish I knew about drawing when I was getting started, and this is that it's very useful to work from light to dark incrementally. So I already mentioned that it's very important for that preliminary sketch to be created lightly so that you're able to erase mistakes, and if you're going for a realistic finish, then that preliminary outline drawing shouldn't even be visible at the end. It's very useful to have in mind that it's way easier to darken something that is light than it is to lighten something that's already been darkened. It's very important to stay mindful of protecting your paper throughout the entire drawing process, keep from scratching it and things like that. And if you are going to burnish your paper at any stage, which basically means pressing down on your paper to basically deposit those deepest, darkest values, make sure that you're doing it in the final stages of the process. Moving on to point number 4, and this one may not apply to people that are going for more of an illustrative or stylized look. But if you're looking to get better at drawing anything that is more on the realistic side of the spectrum, then it's very important that you understand value. Some time ago, I shared a video that is all about tips on drawing realistically, and I explained in that video that it's absolutely essential to be able to practice pinpointing highlights, midtones, and darks in whatever kind of reference you are using so that you're then able to recreate that wide range of values in your drawing. I'll make sure to leave a link to that video down below in the description box for you to check out if you haven't already. However, what I am going to say is that in realism, there are no outlines. What separates one shape from another is a difference in value or texture, and many times those differences are very subtle. And it's very important that you start developing those observational skills so that you're able to pinpoint these subtleties and capture them in your drawing. And the very last thing that I want to share in this point is that realistic drawings that really pop out are drawings that have very light highlights, a wide range of midtones, and very dark darks. So don't be afraid of going dark in the areas that require it. Now, this is not to say that this one dog drawing that you're watching me work on right now is the absolute most magnificent example of realism, because I'm aware it's not. I don't consider myself to be an artist that creates high levels of realism. This is just the study that I did, and I primarily am into more painterly, sketchier styles. All right, moving on to point number 5, and this one is that there are many ways to shade, and smooth blending, or the kind of blending that you do with a blending stump or even with your finger, is just one of these ways. There is hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, scribbling, contouring, cross-contouring, and a variety of other alternative shading techniques which are amazing to know about, especially if you enjoy faster sketching and or drawing with pen and ink as much as I do. I'm going to make sure to leave a link to a past video that I created on alternative shading techniques down below in the description box and at the end of this video so that you can check them out. But once you have a hang on smooth blending, I highly recommend you challenge yourself to draw using at least a few of these, because you might find out that you enjoy them, and they're also very useful to know about for those days that you have only a short amount of time to practice your drawing and you want to practice your shading. Because as I'm going to share in one of the last points of this list, even though it's very, very important that as artists we make time to work on those more finalized, polished pieces, it's also imperative that we make time for faster drawing. Never ever underestimate the power of a faster sketch. All right, moving on to point number 6 in this list, and this one is to use a piece of tracing paper or even a regular piece of paper under your hand to avoid smudging as you're drawing. As you're starting to develop those darker midtones and the darkest values in your drawing, things can get a little bit messy when you're drawing with graphite. And it really helps to keep things as clean as possible, because the more you smudge, the more you're going to have to clean later, or you're going to have to pull out the highlights again from the area that you're darkening by accident. All right, moving on to point number 7 of this list. And this one is, when you're attempting to draw something with specific proportions, like any part of the human figure or a portrait or an animal, etc., it's very important to make time to learn about its proportions. I consider these drawings to be very complex because even non-artists who don't know about proportions are probably going to be able to tell when something looks off. Not to mention, these subjects, whether you're drawing a portrait or the entire human figure or an animal or whatever it may be, is composed of a variety of elements that have their own independent structures. When I got serious about improving my portraits, I first made an effort to understand the human head structure, and I also did a ton of studies of the human skull, both in drawing and in painting. I also studied Andrew Loomis's method for drawing the human head in all different angles in order to better understand the human head as a three-dimensional form. And something that helped me progress my portraits even further was to fill up entire sketchbook pages with eyes and noses and mouths and ears, etc., and be able to understand their structure individually. Moving on to point number 8 of this list, and this one is that it's very, very important to make time for both drawing from photographic references as well as drawing from life, otherwise known as drawing from direct observation. So I really believe that, especially when we're starting out, it's very important to use references, whether you're using a photographic reference or you're drawing something from life that you have in front of you. Using references is going to allow you to develop your artistic eye, to understand how light works, and it's also going to enable you to remember things that you wouldn't otherwise remember if you were just working from your imagination. Now, please notice that I said photographic references, not other artists' illustrations or paintings, because that's a completely different thing, and it will not help you progress towards finding your artistic style and voice as fast as you could if you were using photographs or drawing from life. Now, the reason why I feel it's incredibly important to make time to draw from direct observation or draw from life, as well as draw from photographic references, is because this process challenges us in a way that using a photograph does not. by setting up a still life arrangement to draw, or having a person sit for you, or by going to a specific place to draw a landscape or a setting, a coffee shop or something like that. That is really going to challenge and develop your eye for composition, as well as challenge you to recreate or translate something palpable that you feel in real life to a two-dimensional surface. Drawing from direct observation also really tends to lead to more dynamic, expressive looking works because you're actually there feeling what it's like to be in the setting, or actually there talking to the specific person and getting to know their personality. And all of this really helps to inform your work in a way that looking at a photograph doesn't. Point number 9 is to make freehand sketching a priority as soon as you can. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with tracing when we're just starting out, and I think it even has its place later on in our journeys. For example, I can definitely say that I did a lot of tracing when I was first practicing the human figure. It allowed me to understand the shape of certain muscles and anatomical proportions and things like that. And it can also really help us to start developing that confidence while laying down lines. However, I really feel that if somebody is serious about developing those observational and drawing skills, then he or she should consider tracing as a type of training wheels that you want to get rid of eventually, or as a stepping stone. Freehand drawing allows us to progress our observational and drawing skills and even our art style a lot faster than tracing or using grids can. And if doing freehand drawing is overwhelming or a little bit intimidating for you to do, then I highly recommend using plumb lines as you're drawing those preliminary sketches and those larger shapes. So basically what I do is, if I need to guide myself in some kind of way, I start placing vertical and horizontal lines. But those straight vertical and horizontal lines that I use are not a grid at all. I just lay them down wherever I actually need them throughout the preliminary sketching process, next to the larger shapes as I am laying them down, and only when I truly need it. Because since our brains are able to understand straight vertical and horizontal lines a lot easier than more irregular shapes or angles, then by laying down vertical or horizontal lines in that preliminary sketch process, you're able to more easily measure out shapes against each other and make sure that your angles look correct and all of that, so that preliminary sketch really demonstrates effective proportion and location of all of the elements within the space that you're working on. And finally, moving on to point number 10 of this list, and this one is to keep a sketchbook. I can say from experience that it really wasn't until I made my art and my drawing a priority in my life, and I made my best to stay consistent with it, even if it just meant doing quick sketches here and there on busy weeks, that I really started making significant progress in my drawing skills. And for me, keeping a sketchbook is one of the things that really encouraged me to keep going. I really feel that sketchbooks can be our greatest allies, and they are really a place that we can explore and develop our skills without being judged, without having the pressure of anything having to be finalized. They are really a place that we can discover ourselves artistically, and it's just really enticing to keep filling up those pages. They also keep our work protected for us, which is incredibly useful because we can always go back to see how far we've come. I'm a really big believer in that even faster, smaller sketches and studies are going to help you keep progressing. So if you're really serious about progressing your drawing skills and you haven't bought a sketchbook, then I'm really going to encourage you to go out and buy one. It doesn't matter if it's a cheaper one, just do it. You will not regret it. It's gonna do wonders for you instead of just working on loose leaf pieces of paper. Alright everyone, that is it for today. I really hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comment section below which one of these 10 points you found most useful and which you're going to start applying in your own work. Like this video if you liked it because it really helps my channel get in front of more people. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. You have no idea how much I appreciate it, and see you next Friday.